Little backstory. Friday the 13th, which was last Friday, it is now Sunday, there was a announcement that our school would be going, would be no longer doing face-to-face classes due to the coronavirus that is apparently getting bad or whatnot. So whether or not that is yet to be seen, is yet to be seen. So we are, the Tony Evers, the governor of Wisconsin, has declared essentially a 4-week cancellation of schools. I think April 13th is the day that we need to go back, or we can go back, but essentially they're taking precautions to keep the spread of the coronavirus, keep from the spread of the coronavirus. So schools are being canceled. Really raises a lot of questions. My school is a 1-to-1 school, which means we have one Chromebook to one student for each student. And so last Friday when they made this announcement, the precursor that kind of tipped us off that something was going down was an email saying, make sure all students go home with their Chromebooks and their chargers. So the teachers immediately were like, okay, we know what this means. I myself just showed the students the email and said, all right guys, read this, read between the lines. And considering that it was my AP art class, they, for the most part, figured it out right away. And they understood that we would not be having school for at least a week, which makes sense because it's the week before spring break and everything. So we figured it'd be a week off extra. Turns out they want to do 3 weeks. So that's what's happening. And because we are a 1-to-1 school and fortunate enough to be a 1-to-1 school, we have the capabilities of continuing classes online. And I'm choosing to do my classes through this media. So I've got a little GoPro 7 strapped to my chest, worked out this elaborate little rig thing so that you can see me while I'm hiking, and I get to be outside teaching you guys. So it actually kind of works out really well for me. But anyways, point being, the classes need to continue, and we want to keep educating you and doing our best to be your teachers even in times like this. So I'm starting these hiking art ed classes because then I get to hike, and this is usually when I do all my thinking anyways for the following week, but this way I can share my thoughts with you, and any of the thoughts that develop into anything I will post for you and use them as art lessons. So the first art lesson that I thought of actually was on March 13th, 2020, when all this happened, last Friday. So I had to go to work after that at the ale house. And I was sitting there and realizing that this was really affecting our business, considering it's the weekend before St. Patty's, and that's usually a big drinking weekend for obvious reasons. And yet we didn't have many people at all. The clientele was very small, but lovely people nonetheless. And so it got me thinking about this, and I said this to some of you guys before the end of the day. This is something that has never been experienced before in our history. It's something completely unprecedented that we do not know how to deal with. I mean, it could be comparable to the swine flu or to previous pandemics in the early 1900s, but essentially nothing to this scale has been propagated by social media because it never happened before. And the fact that it is guiding our society to respond in certain ways, like we've had to cancel school, people aren't going out, people were buying rolls and rolls of toilet paper because they didn't know, and they were freaking out, which is understandable. But is this epidemic as big as a problem that we are making it out to be? We don't know. We don't know. I mean, we're taking the precautions not to, but at this point, the mania has really caused our society to react at a global level. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens in these next few weeks. So I came up with the idea with my research and education background to essentially do an unofficial ethnographic study. So if you don't know what an ethnographic study is, it's basically a first-hand study of what's happening at that very moment. So essentially it was an anthropological study, because people would march into the woods and find these indigenous tribes, and like it's not like you can do 1 + 1 = 2 or measure a bunch of stuff or categorize a bunch of stuff with a situation like that. You got to report what's happening and making assumptions, hypotheses about why these things are happening the way that they are. Why does that person paint their face that way? Why do they have these different scarrings? Why do they keep these certain animals? Why do they have these certain rituals? So you have to study these, and the only way that you can do that is in the truest sense of science, which is experiential research in that moment. You know, the what can I see, touch, taste, smell, feel measurements, because unless you continually research this, you can't turn it into any theories or anything because you don't have enough information. So yeah, so I've proposed to my students, and at this point I do not have any IRB, that's an institutional review board approval for this type of research. So anything that I collect at this point is moot anyways, but I feel like having a study of how people are feeling about things in the moment as they unfold is super important and historical. So that night at the ale house, I published an assignment for my students at my middle school and high school, asking them to journal how they feel about the situation. I explained to them what ethnographic research is and said that they are going to be involved in this research. So my students will be, and some, honestly, I posted this, and this was kind of amazing to me. When I posted this, a few students responded right away saying that they liked this idea, or they wanted to know more about it, or how they should write it up and things like that. But it means that the kids are reading it, and essentially it's an assignment, so they should do it anyways, but I don't think they grasp how important this type of research is at the time. So back to the point. Asking you guys to do ethnographic research will essentially, this is something that nobody knows about. And the original anthropology or science or whatever have you, basically anything and everything, like this is uncharted territory. It's the unknown. Do more, do better.